Somewhere in a workshop that has no business existing, a machine is about to switch on. It is built from a battered Victorian steamer trunk, a chunk of fossilized amber, and a sliver of an actual meteorite, all wired together by a scientist with 3 doctorates and exactly 1 dented fedora. He calls the machine the Chronosaur, and it has one strange habit. It does not fly. It does not hum or spin or light up like something from a movie. It simply arrives. The scientist, Professor Rex Calloway, built an artificial intelligence into the machine itself, a traveling companion he calls Pip, whose main job seems to be reminding him of rules he keeps breaking. Rule 1 is simple: do not touch anything. Rule 2 is simpler: do not get eaten. There is a Rule 3 as well, something about never losing the field notebook, but Calloway has broken that one 4 times already, and today will likely make 5. The dial on the Chronosaur is set for 231 million years in the past to a single enormous landmass called Pangaea, back when every continent on Earth was still fused together into one shape. Dinosaurs have only just appeared, and nothing about them looks destined for greatness. They are small, they are unproven, and for the next several minutes, you are about to meet every single one of them, in order, until we arrive at a single ordinary afternoon 66 million years from now that ends this entire story in about 6 minutes flat. Nobody alive that day will know it is the last one. That is where we are heading. But first, we go back to the beginning. In what is now northwestern Argentina, a fast, lightly built animal about the size of a fox darts along a riverbank. This is Eoraptor, and it is one of the oldest dinosaurs known to science, roughly 1 meter long, weighing about as much as a large house cat. It has both blunt, leaf-shaped teeth and small curved ones, which tells us it likely ate whatever it could catch or forage, plants and small animals alike. A short distance away stalks something considerably larger, a predator called Herrerasaurus. Popular retellings often shrink this animal down to something barely bigger than a dog, but the fossil record tells a different story, with most detailed studies putting Herrerasaurus at somewhere between 13 and 20 feet long, built with a flexible, hinged lower jaw that let it adjust its grip on struggling prey. At this point in history, Herrerasaurus is one of the largest hunters on the entire supercontinent. Jump forward a few million years into what will one day be New Mexico, and the dinosaurs have already begun refining their formula. Coelophysis is a slim, fast, bird-boned hunter, and it turned out to be so common in this environment that in 1947, researchers uncovered a single bone bed, a place where the remains of hundreds of individuals were buried together at a site now known as Ghost Ranch. Something, likely a flash flood, killed a huge number of these animals at once and swept them into one place, giving paleontologists an almost unheard of window into a single population of Triassic dinosaurs. Not every early dinosaur stayed small. In what will become Germany, a long-necked plant eater called Plateosaurus had already grown to roughly 25 feet, one of the first true giants in dinosaur history. Nearby, a leaner, 2-legged relative called Liliensternus hunted on its own 2 feet, one of the largest predators Europe had produced up to that point. Back in Argentina, a heavy, 4-legged giant named Riojasaurus lumbered through the underbrush, further proof that being enormous was already starting to pay off for early dinosaurs. And on the far side of Pangaea, in what will become China, a close cousin of Plateosaurus called Lufengosaurus shows that this same basic body plan, long neck, long tail, 4 sturdy legs, was already spreading to every corner of the world. 7 dinosaurs in, and Pangaea already has sprinters, giants, and pack hunters. Not bad for an opening act. A mass extinction wipes the slate clean, and when the story resumes, the dinosaurs are the ones left standing. The Chronosaur's first stop in this new chapter is the coldest place on the planet, a version of Antarctica far less icy than the one we know today. Here lives Cryolophosaurus, nicknamed for its odd pompadour-shaped crest, and it holds a small but real distinction. It is the first meat-eating dinosaur ever discovered on that continent. Elsewhere, in warmer country, a similarly crested predator called Dilophosaurus patrols its territory. Despite what a certain 1993 film would have you believe, the real Dilophosaurus had no expandable neck frill and no venomous spit. What it did have was size, standing around 6 feet tall at the hip and stretching to roughly 20 feet long, making it one of the largest land predators anywhere on Earth at the time, armed with genuinely powerful jaws rather than gimmicks. Across the world, plant eaters were diversifying quickly. In southern Africa, herds of Massospondylus left behind something remarkable, a nesting ground that has produced the oldest confirmed dinosaur embryos ever found, offering scientists a rare look at how the very earliest dinosaurs raised their young. Nearby, a smaller, spinier animal called Celutosaurus grazed low to the ground in what will one day be England, and this unassuming little herbivore turns out to be an early ancestor shared by two very different armored dinosaur families that appear much later, the plated stegosaurs and the tank-like ankylosaurs. A heavier, four-legged herbivore named Volcanodon grazes the tree line as one of the first true long-necked giants, an early ancestor of the massive long-necked giants still to come. And in China, a small, spiky-backed plant eater called Huayangosaurus is quietly inventing the body plan that a much more famous plated dinosaur will later perfect. While North America is still catching up, ancient China is already becoming a dinosaur powerhouse in its own right. A long-necked plant eater called Shunosaurus wades through the shallows, and unlike most long-necked giants, which rely on a simple whip-like tail, this one carries a bony club on the very end of its tail for close-range self-defense. On a nearby ridge, a fast predator with a single crest running down its snout, Monolophosaurus, watches a passing herd. Down in the ferns, a small and easily overlooked animal called Yinlong turns out to be the earliest known member of an entire family, the horned dinosaurs, meaning every Triceratops you will ever see owes this modest little animal a debt of gratitude. Millions of years later, in the same region, a spiked and plated herbivore called Twojongosaurus, strikingly similar to the more famous Stegosaurus, grazes the underbrush, while a 35-foot apex predator named Yangchuanosaurus, essentially Asia's answer to the great predators of the American West, prowls the same landscape. Speaking of the American West, that is exactly where the Chronosaur travels next. This is the single most famous chapter in dinosaur history, a place called the Morrison Formation, spread across the western United States during the late Jurassic. Long-necked giants browse the tree line side by side, living together in a way that still surprises paleontologists today. Camarasaurus is the most common, with a short, boxy skull and spoon-shaped teeth built for stripping vegetation. Towering above it is Brachiosaurus, holding its long neck almost straight up to reach branches nothing else can touch. Down by the river graze two very similar giants, Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus. For most of the 20th century, scientists treated these as the exact same animal, filing Brontosaurus away as an outdated name. A detailed 2015 study looked closely at the skeletal differences and restored Brontosaurus as its own genus, a real animal after all, simply a very close cousin rather than an identical twin. Sliding past them all is the longest of the group, an animal built almost entirely out of neck and tail called Diplodocus, whose whip-like tail could reportedly crack like a bullwhip to ward off attackers. None of these giants travel alone, and the reason why is easy to spot. Allosaurus is the top predator of this world, stalking the herds with a mouthful of serrated teeth and blade-like ridges above its eyes. Its rival, Ceratosaurus, smaller but armed with a distinctive horn on its nose, hunts the same territory. In the shadows lurks something rarer still, Torvosaurus, one of the most powerful carnivores of the entire Jurassic period. Down on the ground, the more cautious herbivores take a different approach. Stegosaurus relies on a spiked tail to keep predators at a respectful distance, while a quick, lightly built herd of Dryosaurus nearby survives almost entirely by outrunning trouble before it starts. While the Morrison booms in America, Europe is producing its own miniature marvels. Compsognathus is one of the smallest dinosaurs ever documented, barely larger than a turkey, yet an absolute terror to the lizards it hunted. And here we arrive at arguably the single most important fossil ever pulled from the ground. Its name is Archaeopteryx. This is the moment the whole story quietly turns a corner, so it is worth slowing down for. Archaeopteryx has feathers, wings, and a wishbone, features we associate purely with birds. But it also has teeth, clawed fingers, and a long, bony tail, features we associate purely with dinosaurs. First discovered in 1861 in Germany, just 2 years after Charles Darwin published his theory of evolution, it landed at exactly the right moment to become one of history's most famous transitional fossils, evidence that one kind of animal really can gradually become another. Remember this creature. Everything from this point forward is building toward the same idea, and the ending of this entire journey depends on it. Across the ancient sea in East Africa, a spiked herbivore called Kentrosaurus grazes alongside a shorter-necked giant named Dinocheirus, proof that not every long-necked dinosaur evolved to reach for the treetops. One final stop before the Jurassic closes takes the Chronosaur to England, home of a heavy-jawed predator called Megalosaurus, the very first dinosaur ever given an official scientific name back in 1824, decades before anyone had even coined the word dinosaur. From the first dinosaur ever named to the fossil that proved birds and dinosaurs were never really separate, the Jurassic period quietly handed over the entire future of this family tree. The next stop is one of the richest fossil treasure troves on the planet, a region in China known for volcanic ash so fine that it preserved even delicate feathers in stone. Practically everything here has fuzz. A tiny four-winged animal called Anchiornis flits between branches, its plumage preserved in patterns of black, gray, and a splash of red. Nearby, a shaggy, bristle-covered animal named Bapiosaurus forges through the undergrowth, while a peacock-tailed show-off called Caudipteryx struts past, built for display rather than flight. Overhead, a black and iridescent glider called Microraptor launches from branch to branch like a prehistoric flying squirrel. And down on the forest floor, a feathered hunter named Sinornithosaurus stalks smaller prey. Then, something colossal moves through the mist. This is Eutyrannus, a relative of the Tyrannosaurs, stretching roughly 30 feet long, and it holds a genuine record. The largest dinosaur ever found with direct physical evidence of feathers still preserved on its body. Suddenly, fluffy and terrifying are no longer opposites. Grazing warily nearby is a small, quill-tailed, parrot-beaked plant eater called Psittacosaurus, while in a far corner of this same world, a lone armored holdout named Warhosaurus still carries the older, more old-fashioned stegosaur look, the last of an outdated design surviving into a very different era. Fish have suddenly become big business, and an entire family of dinosaurs has developed the perfect toolkit for catching them. In England, Baryonyx carries crocodile-like jaws and a massive curved claw on each thumb. Nearby, a heavier plant eater called Iguanodon grazes with a sharpened thumb spike of its own. In Spain, a predator called Concavenator carries a mysterious hump rising above its hips, a feature scientists still debate the purpose of. Across the ocean in Africa, that same long-snouted fish-catching body plan reappears in Suchomimus, while a sail-backed herbivore called Eoraptor carries a tall ridge of skin down its spine nearby. Darting through the reeds, a fast, two-legged grazer named Hypsilophodon relies entirely on early warning and quick legs to survive.
But nothing in this chapter compares to the giant surfacing from the river itself. This is Spinosaurus, widely regarded as the largest predatory dinosaur ever discovered, longer even than Tyrannosaurus rex, carrying a sail of spines along its back that may have stretched close to 7 feet tall, along with a paddle-like tail built for swimming. Across the ocean, in what will become Brazil, a smaller relative called Eoraptor patrols its own stretch of water. This next stop is the discovery that changed everything scientists once believed about dinosaurs. Deinonychus is a 9-foot pack hunter with a huge, curved, sickle-shaped claw on each foot. And when researchers first studied this animal closely in the 1960s, it completely rewrote the public image of dinosaurs, from slow and sluggish reptiles into fast, active, dangerously coordinated hunters. That shift in thinking became so influential that paleontologists still refer to it as the beginning of the modern view of dinosaurs. And Deinonychus is not even the largest raptor around. Eoraptor carries the same sickle-clawed toolkit, scaled up to nearly 20 feet long. Its favorite prey, a mid-sized plant eater called Deinocheirus, grazes nervously nearby. Not every herbivore here is defenseless, though. Sauropelta is built like a walking fortress, specifically designed to make a raptor think twice. Overhead, a tall spined predator named Acrocanthosaurus patrols its own territory. And on the far side of the ancient Pacific, in Japan, a mid-sized hunter called Fukuiraptor stalks its own patch of coastline. South America has drifted off on its own by now, and evolution here starts taking some genuinely strange turns. A long-necked herbivore called Amargasaurus carries a double row of tall spines running down its neck and back, unlike anything else in the fossil record. Low in the underbrush, a bizarre armored dinosaur named Jacopel forages upright on 2 legs, an armored body plan nobody expected to walk that way. Crossing the pole into a very different world, Australia currently sits much closer to the South Pole than it does today, meaning months of complete darkness every single year. Here, a small, quick herbivore called Leiolinosaura gets by on unusually large eyes, built to navigate the long polar nights. A much larger relative, Muttaburrasaurus, browses the tree line nearby, while a squat, armored survivor named Minmi forages quietly along the forest floor. If you want to see the largest land animals in the history of the planet, South America is exactly where you need to be. Argentinosaurus may be the largest land animal that has ever lived, with length estimates running well past 100 feet. Though because only fragments of its skeleton have ever been found, paleontologists still argue over exactly how it compares to its closest rivals. Chief among those rivals is Patagotitan, nearly as massive, and Dreadnoughtus, the most completely preserved giant of the group, estimated at around 65 tons. With prey this enormous, predators had to scale up to match. Giganotosaurus is one of the largest meat-eating dinosaurs ever discovered, rivaling Tyrannosaurus rex in sheer size. And its close relative Maposaurus was found in a bone bed containing dozens of individuals, hinting that these giants may have hunted in groups. Stranger hunters round out the neighborhood, including Carnotaurus, with bull-like horns and famously tiny arms built purely for speed, and the short-snouted, fierce Abilosaurus. Even the herbivores here came armored, as the giant long-necked Saltosaurus actually carried bony plates embedded directly into its skin. As the southern continents slowly drift apart, isolated pockets of land begin breeding their own unique monsters. Madagascar's top predator is Majungasaurus, short-snouted and powerful, with fossil evidence suggesting that when times were hard, it occasionally turned to eating its own kind. Across the water in Africa, a rough-skinned scavenger named Rugops picks over the floodplains, while halfway across the ancient ocean in India, a horned predator called Rajasaurus rules its own patch of territory. Few places on Earth have produced more spectacular dinosaur fossils than the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, and this next stop delivers one of the most famous fossils ever recovered, a parent caught in the exact act of guarding its nest. Psittacipodi is an oviraptorate, a member of a bird-like beaked family of dinosaurs, and it was discovered sitting directly on top of its eggs in a distinctly bird-like brooding pose. For decades, a related animal called Oviraptor took the blame as a nest-raiding egg thief, since its remains were first found near a clutch of eggs. It turns out those eggs were its own, and it was simply protecting its young when it died. Grazing warily nearby is a small, frilled plant eater called Protoceratops, made famous by a fossil found locked in what looks like mortal combat with a Velociraptor. And forget the movie monsters entirely, because the real Velociraptor was roughly the size of a turkey, fully covered in feathers, closer to a fierce ground-dwelling bird than the towering reptile most people picture. Racing across the dunes nearby, the ostrich-like Gallimimus relies purely on raw speed to survive. Towering above this entire scene is genuinely one of the strangest dinosaurs ever unearthed. For nearly 50 years, all researchers had of this animal were its 8-foot-long arms, discovered in 1965, leading to decades of speculation about some enormous, ferocious predator. When the rest of the skeleton was finally recovered and described in 2014, it turned out to be Deinocheirus, a 36-foot sail-backed giant with a toothless duck-like bill, an omnivore that likely waded through shallow water eating plants and fish. Nearby stands its bizarre, scythe-clawed cousin, Therizinosaurus, whose claws stretch over 3 feet long and were used for stripping vegetation rather than attacking prey. A stubby-armed relative named Mononychus digs into termite mounds with a single blunt claw, while its cousin Alvarezsaurus proves this strange family spread across the globe. Rounding out this crowded desert are the bus-sized feathered giant Gigantoraptor, the low-slung early horned dinosaur Dinoceratops, Asia's apex predator Tarbosaurus, a close relative of Tyrannosaurus rex, and looking back to older Jurassic-era Siberia, the early scaly and feathered Kulindodromeus. 14 different dinosaurs in a single desert. Somebody was clearly busy. By the very end of the Cretaceous period, China has developed its own thriving caste of giants. An elaborately frilled herbivore called Sinoceratops stands as the only well-documented horned dinosaur discovered anywhere in Asia. Beside it stands the single-horned Centaurosaurus, and towering over both, Shantongosaurus, a duck-billed herbivore stretching close to 50 feet long. A long, narrow-snouted predator patrols nearby, Qianjusaurus, affectionately nicknamed the Pinocchio Rex for its unusually elongated skull. Even the tyrant lizards, it seems, have a black sheep in the family. And now, the moment this entire journey has been building toward. Tyrannosaurus rex stretches roughly 40 feet long, with a bite powerful enough to crush straight through bone. Quite possibly the single most powerful land predator in the history of the planet. Sharing this same era are its slightly older relatives, the pack-hunting Albertosaurus and the appropriately named Daspletosaurus, whose title translates to frightful lizard. In the shadow of these tyrant kings, a peaceful plant-eating relative of the scythe-clawed Therizinosaurus called Nothronicus forages quietly nearby. Even the herbivores in this neighborhood look like they could end you. By the close of the Cretaceous, the horned dinosaurs have become one of the most successful families on the entire continent, and the variety on display is remarkable. Leading the group is the unmistakable Triceratops, 3 horns and a solid bony frill. Its close relative, Torosaurus, carries a much larger, hole-punched frill, so similar in overall structure that paleontologists have spent well over a decade debating whether Torosaurus is truly a separate animal or simply what an elderly Triceratops looked like. The debate remains genuinely unresolved, though most recent studies lean toward treating them as distinct. Pentaceratops flashes 5 distinct horn-like points. Styracosaurus carries a single nose horn ringed by frill spikes, and Centrosaurus herds traveled in colossal numbers. Chasmosaurus sports one of the largest frills relative to its body size of any horned dinosaur. Pachyrhinosaurus traded horns entirely for a thick, bony boss. Ankylosauros carries a rough, textured nasal pad, and Einiosaurus sports a nose horn that curls forward like a bottle opener. Xenoceratops is one of the earliest large-bodied members of this entire spiked family. Cosmoceratops holds the record for the single most ornamented skull of any known dinosaur, with 15 separate horns and horn-like structures crowded onto one head. And Zuniceratops represents a genuine missing link, complete with brow horns but no horn on its nose at all. 12 horned dinosaurs in one place, essentially prehistoric fashion week. If the horned dinosaurs were the ornamental dynasty, the duck-billed dinosaurs, known as hadrosaurs, were the numbers game. A flat-headed giant called Edmontosaurus grazes nearby, and Maiasaura, whose name literally means good mother lizard, tends a massive colony of nests, among the first solid evidence that some dinosaurs cared for their young in organized groups. Parasaurolophus uses a long, backward-curving tube of hollow bone on its head to produce deep, resonant calls, essentially a built-in trombone. Corythosaurus wears a helmet-shaped crest, Lambeosaurus a hatchet-shaped one, and Saurolophus carries a solid, backward-sweeping spike instead. Rounding out the parade is Gryposaurus with an arched, almost Roman nose, and Hadrosaurus itself, the very animal that gave this entire family its name. Halfway across the world, in what will become Russia, a related giant called Olorotitan proves that this duck-billed success story played out on a genuinely global scale. While the horned dinosaurs relied on offense, one particular family perfected pure defense instead. Ankylosaurus wears armor plating from head to tail, capped off with a heavy bone club powerful enough to fracture a predator's leg in a single swing. Its relative Euplocephalus goes even further, with armored eyelids protecting its eyes. Edmontonia trades the tail club for aggressive shoulder spikes instead, while Nodosaurus relies purely on heavy body armor with no club at all. 4 different ways to say, "Please do not eat me," and every single one of them worked remarkably well. Finally, one more peculiar family deserves a proper introduction, a group of small to mid-sized herbivores with astonishingly thick, dome-shaped skulls. Pachycephalosaurus carries up to 10 inches of solid bone across the top of its head, while its smaller relative Stegosaurus runs on the exact same blueprint, just at a more modest scale. This is nature's own version of all helmet, no plan. Before the story reaches its final day, two smaller dinosaurs deserve one last mention. Back in the early Jurassic, a small, fast herbivore called Lesothosaurus survived almost entirely by outrunning bigger predators. Much later, on an isolated island chain in what will become Romania, a strange case of island dwarfism plays out with a duck-billed relative called Zalmoxes.
Cut off from the mainland, with limited food available, this animal evolved into a fraction of the size of its full-grown cousins elsewhere in the world. A reminder that isolation can shrink giants just as easily as time can grow them. And so, the Chronosaur returns to exactly where this entire journey began. The strange thing about endings is that nobody living through one ever seems to know that is what it is. Somewhere far above the atmosphere, a 6-mile-wide asteroid is already on its final approach, closing the distance at somewhere around 40,000 miles per hour. Within hours, it will strike what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, triggering global wildfires, towering tsunamis, and a years-long planetary winter that ends the age of non-avian dinosaurs forever. Every single dinosaur featured in this entire journey will be gone within what is, on a geological timescale, little more than the blink of an eye. But here is the twist ending nobody quite expects. The dinosaurs never actually went extinct. Remember Archaeopteryx all the way back in the Jurassic? The feathers, the wings, the hollow bones? That animal, along with later feathered dinosaurs like Microraptor and the rest of that fuzzy gliding family, was never a strange evolutionary side branch. It was the opening chapter of an entirely new one. Every bird alive on Earth today is a direct descendant of the very dinosaurs this whole journey just spent so long exploring. So the next time a pigeon steals a chip off your picnic table, remember, you are looking directly at a very successful, very modern dinosaur. 165 million years, well over 100 species, and every single continent on the planet led directly to this. That is this trip through deep time. If you want to come along the next time the Chronosaur fires back up, you already know what to do. Subscribe, ring the bell, and try not to get eaten in the comments section.